up today, President Park Geunhye calls on the government and lawmakers to revitalise the economy through reform. She also urges greater efforts to counter corruption. Some welcome relief as global stock markets stabilise after plunging the previous day due to global uncertainties, mostly surrounding the strength of the Chinese economy. Plus, US President Barack Obama announces a series of executive actions aimed at reducing gun violence, but stresses it's not a plot to take away everyone's guns. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello to our viewers around the world. It's 6 a.m. on Wednesday, January 6th, here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Broom. And we start at the nation's top office, where President Park Geunhye has laid out her vision to reinvigorate the economy this year. The president says she needs the support of her ministers and lawmakers to ensure critical economy-related reforms are carried out. Song Ji-sun starts us off.
As she entered her fourth year in office, President Park Geunhye renewed her call for economic growth through reform, saying she and her administration will do all they can for the people and the nation for the remainder of her term. The president asked the cabinet members to work to improve the livelihoods of the public. She asked for the same efforts from the National Assembly, which has yet to vote on a package of economy-related bills, including the one on labor reform that she has actively promoted. She repeated her call for lawmakers to both pass the bills and work for the people they represent.
이대로 국회가 문을 닫는다면 청년 일자리의 문도 닫히게 되고 대한민국의 미래도 닫히게 됩니다. 부디 새해에는 국회와 정치권 모두 진심으로 국민을 위해 힘을 모으고 신뢰를 얻게 되기를 바랍니다.
President Park added that Koreans should have more confidence in the economy, citing a report by the UK-based Center for Economics and Business Research that says Korea will overtake most Western European countries to become one of the world's top 5 economies at some point in the 2030s. She also called on the ministers to root out corruption, saying that outdated misdeeds stand as obstacles to plans for strengthening the Korean economy through deregulation and reform. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
Turning now to China's stock market, and the year got off to a terrible start, but Chinese shares leveled out a touch on Tuesday after what was a roller coaster session. Korea's stock market also rebounded after hitting a 4-month low, but officials in Seoul say they are going to keep a close eye on the situation. Kim Min-ji reports.
China's benchmark index somewhat steadied after the carnage on Monday. There were early concerns that there could be more of the same as the Shanghai Composite Index opened more than 3% lower on Tuesday. The index tumbled a whopping 7% on the first day of trading of 2016 before China's new system-wide circuit breaker pulled the plug on trading. On Tuesday, China's central bank flooded the banking system with the largest cash injection since September, which likely helped calm the market rout. Thanks to China's attempt to get back on course, Korea's shares also showed signs of recovery. Korea's benchmark Kospi added over 0.6% on Tuesday, bouncing back from a 4-month low the day before. The Korean government downplayed the impact of China's market crash on the local market, saying on Tuesday that it will raise monitoring of financial and foreign exchange markets and step up efforts to alleviate unnecessary concerns. However, experts warn of similar situations playing out down the road.
Negative investor sentiment regarding China will not easily wear off. Although we may not see massive losses like Monday's, at least for the time being, given China's slow growth and considering that the problems surrounding its economy are structural issues, market fluctuations can continue at any time.
The Chinese market rout came on the back of sluggish manufacturing activity in the country that cast a dark cloud over the world's second-largest economy. The panic sent shockwaves across stock markets in Asia, the U.S., as well as Europe. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
US President Barack Obama has unveiled his executive action plan to introduce tighter gun controls in the United States. During a tearful speech and surrounded by the families of gun death victims, Obama said the U.S. did not have to accept the carnage of gun violence as the price of freedom. Insisting he intended to honor the Second Amendment's right to bear arms, Obama said his plan only targets irresponsible owners and those with lengthy criminal records who wanted to use firearms illegally. More than 30,000 people in the US are killed by guns every year through suicides, domestic violence, gang shootouts and accidents. German Chancellor Angela Merkel has voiced her outrage over a series of sexual assaults on women by groups of young men during New Year's Eve celebrations in the western city of Cologne. According to local media, Merkel called Cologne's mayor on Tuesday to express her deep concern about the assaults and asked to punish those responsible without regard to their origin or background. Now, the incident has sparked a debate about the behaviour of migrants in Germany after witnesses described the perpetrators as being men of Arab or North African origin. Police say the assailants have not yet been identified, but conservative and right-wing politicians were quick to blame the incident on Merkel's open arms policy towards migrants and refugees. At least 90 criminal complaints have been filed by women, including one allegation of rape. Now, some good news in the global fight against the extremist group that calls itself Islamic State. The US-led coalition fighting ISIS says the group's territory shrank by 40% from its maximum expansion in Iraq and by 20% in Syria in 2015 as international forces pushed it out of several cities. Taking both countries together, ISIS has lost 30% of the territory it once had. ISIS has yet to comment on the coalition's estimates, but in Iraq alone, the group has been forced out of several cities, including Tikrit and Ramadi. Iraqi Prime Minister said last month that 2016 would be the year ISIS was finally defeated once and for all. A US media report says North Korea successfully carried out a submarine-launched ballistic missile test late last month, which would indicate an earlier test failure has not derailed the underwater missile program. Now, citing unidentified US defense officials, the report in the conservative American online news site, the Washington Free Beacon, said the missile test from a submerged submarine took place on December 21st near the eastern port of Shimpo. It noted the test followed a failed launch a month before that damaged North Korea's first missile submarine. However, the report did not provide further details, including whether the missile's engine ignited after the ejection or whether the missile took flight. The report added that other analysts remain skeptical that Pyongyang can master the technology for submarine missile firings. Now, more than 1 week has passed since Korea and Japan struck a landmark agreement on Japan's sexual enslavement of Korean women before and during World War II. It has been hailed in some quarters and derided in others. But now that the dust has settled a touch, where does the agreement stand now? Gwon-soa has this report.
Korea and Japan's governments did reach an agreement at the end of last year on the sex slave issue, but the aftermath, namely the eruption of voices of concern and rejection of the deal, doesn't seem to be letting up.
Abe should come up with a deep-hearted apology. Only then will we be at ease. We can't leave things as they are right now. We will fight until the day we die. Please fight with us.
Kim Bok-dong, one of the 46 Korean victims officially registered as a so-called comfort woman, expressed her discontent at a civic forum Tuesday that dealt with the drawbacks of the landmark settlement, such as the exclusion of the surviving victims in last month's negotiations between Seoul and Tokyo. On the same day, a group of lawmakers of the main opposition Minju Party of Korea met with Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se, saying the issue needs to be renegotiated with Tokyo. Meanwhile, experts in Seoul debated the issue and agreed that public consensus is necessary in order for the deal to be widely accepted.
The president and foreign minister, those in charge, should put more effort in helping the victims, their supporters and the public at large to understand the deal in a sincere and honest way.
Some experts pointed out that Korea and Japan may have to revisit their agreement at another high-level meeting.
Korea and Japan are moving in the direction of a win-win outcome, but to confirm that things are in good standing, there needs to be reconfirmation to seal the deal once more at a bilateral summit meeting.
Experts said that it's important for people not to be swayed by reports coming out of Japan, as it's easy for different parties to translate the meaning of the deal to their own advantage, which could lead to more strained ties. In Korea-Japan relations, 2015 will be remembered as the year the two countries clinched the landmark deal. But it looks like their main job this year will be to respond to the questions and objections both raised by the public and, of course, the so-called comfort women themselves. 권소아, Arirang News.
Now, as a follow-up to that report, South Korea's foreign ministry says it will act quickly to establish a foundation that supports victims of Japan's wartime sexual enslavement. At a briefing on Tuesday, a foreign ministry spokesperson said working-level talks are being held with the Ministry of Gender Equality to set up the organization, and relevant parties will hold a conference soon. The spokesperson said the Gender Ministry will issue a white paper, but negotiations between Korea and Japan won't impact the document. However, the government will carefully consider whether the white paper is distributed overseas. Now, Korea is looking forward to the new year with tempered optimism following a difficult 2015. The problem is that many of the economic uncertainties that dogged Korea last year look set to persist for the time being. So, to get an expert's take on what the next 12 months might hold for the Korean economy, Park Geunhye sat down with the president of the Korea Institute for International Economic Policy.
Korean government focused a lot on boosting domestic demand last year, and that was because of the slowing exports. But conditions aren't looking so bright this year either. So what's your take on the export outlook this year?
Export most likely will not decline. Last year, what happened was our export declined because of the oil price decline. Obviously, there have also been other factors like the slowdown in EMs, as well as in advanced economies. This year, most likely, the drop itself will not take place because it's already at the bottom. So as they bottom out, the growth rate itself will not fall, but it will not actually recover to where it was last year. So looking at our market or our export overall, we are actually running out of time. Our traditional export strategy has run its course. It has served us well. But we are now entering a new global environment, and we need to come up with a new revised strategy for our exports.
Because the growth in the second half was mainly driven by the government, people are now concerning about a drastic drop in spending early this year. Do you also agree with that notion?
No. I don't think that we will see a sharp drop in consumption. Because consumption is something that is dependent on our livelihood. Whether we can maintain the 2% in terms of consumption growth, that's a question that we have to ask seriously about.
Then where do you think Korea should focus most on?
Value creation. Value creation, and because it's actually a very highly charged word. Because of technology, globalization, and you name it, these various combinations have actually led to a situation where the global economy can produce things for everyone with much less people. And that essentially means lower wage share. Lower wage share means less income. Less income means less consumption, and thus less investment needs. And thus we have actually entered a vicious cycle where the economy doesn't work anymore. So essentially we have capital and labor. We need to optimally allocate those. And because we are running out of labor locally in 10, 20 years, we need to diversify our capital outside.
But won't that create asset outside of the country, not inside of the country, since like factories or other value creation is taking place outside of Korea?
That's why, at the same time, we have to ensure that our business environment is friendly so that foreign capital can actually come into Korea wherever there is a competitive advantage. At the moment, that's not taking place. We need to level the playing field between large and small, between foreign and domestic companies. We need to make the labor market more flexible. It has to have a much easier solution in terms of the processes in dealing with labor problems, because many companies, foreign companies, are staying out because of this issue.
So creating a business-friendly environment is, I guess, crucial. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Well, that's all we have for now. Do have a wonderful Wednesday, and thank you as always for tuning in. And we do hope to see you at the same time tomorrow, and also at noon Korea time later today. Until then, goodbye.